Welcome to Comix Relix, and today we're talking about the world's greatest comic magazine. So when it comes to the Fantastic Four, the Jack Kirby Stan Lee run is important to me historically and dramatically, but the FF that's closest to my fanboy heart tend to be by John Byrne. My favorite FF story is about Galactus, but it's not his first appearance. Rather, it's a three-part story early in Byrne's run, which was then followed up over a year later as Reed Richards was forced to defend saving the life of the World Eater. This extended story arc was collected in the trade paperback The Trial of Galactus. Byrne does some very interesting things with this book, not only raising some truly cosmic questions, but also commenting on another series he was famous for working on, The Uncanny X-Men. The Trial of Galactus covers 9 issues of the FF, broken down to roughly 3 connected arcs. 242 to 244 is about Galactus' then-current herald, Terrax, trying to betray his master, failing, and Galactus trying to consume Earth yet again. Galactus is so weakened, though, that the FF, the Avengers, and Doctor Strange are able to defeat him. When Reed finds Galactus is dying, however, he decides to revive him. This act of kindness baffles Galactus, and still leaves him having to consume Earth if he's going to live. That's when Frankie Ray, Johnny's girlfriend, who recently found out she has her own Human Torch-like powers, makes an offer. She will become Galactus' new herald, replacing Terrax, and find him new planets to consume, as long as he spares Earth. Galactus agrees, bestows Frankie with a power cosmic so that she becomes the much more powerful Nova, and she leaves Earth, breaking Johnny's heart. Cut ahead 13 issues to FF 257 to 260. We see Galactus being visited by Death, which indicates his burden as a devourer of worlds is heavier than we've previously known. Nova then takes Galactus to the Skrull homeworld to consume it, paving the way for the rest of the story. Meanwhile, Doctor Doom locates Terrax and decides to use him in his next attack on the FF. Finally, Reed Richards has gone missing, abducted while at Avengers Mansion, while Sue and the others have to deal with Doom and Terrax at a supermarket. This leads us to the finale. 261 is a search for Reed Richards, helped by the Silver Surfer, who also helped with Terrax and the Watcher. It turns out Reed has been found guilty of the crime of saving Galactus' life, and is being placed on trial by the Shi'ar, by surviving Skrulls, and by many others whose planet has also been devoured by Galactus. Basically, he's being found guilty of letting genocide continue to happen when he could have let Galactus die and it would have stopped, theoretically. The last issue in the book, 262, has the Watcher summon John Byrne, or rather the Marvel Universe version of him, to pay witness to this trial. Like the John Byrne of our world, this one is the creator of the Fantastic Four's comic book adventures, so of course he has to be there to see how it turns out. At the trial, Reed surprises everyone by admitting he is guilty as charged of saving Galactus, but he believes Galactus exists in the universe for a reason. Guided by logic and faith, Reed argues Galactus dying would throw the universe off balance. 3 witnesses then arrive to support the defense. Odin of Asgard, who shares the origin of Galactus. Galactus himself appears, scaring the bejesus out of everyone, since there are countless survivors of his world devouring there. And finally, Eternity, the embodiment of the entire universe, makes an appearance. Eternity is the one who gives everyone present a flash of cosmic awareness, an insight on what Galactus' role is in the universe and why Reed was right in saving him. This, I guess, is the equivalent of surviving a natural disaster, then finding out that natural disaster is a necessary part of the world going on the way it does. Or for that matter, it's like the scene in Annie Hall where Woody Allen brings out Marshall McLuhan to tell somebody how poorly that person understood McLuhan's theories. In FF, it's a universe actually being pulled out to tell the accusers of Reed Richards they don't know anything about how the universe really works. So with Reed exonerated, the 616 Byrne returns home with the Watcher to report to his editor, or rather his assistant editor, and we assume he draws the issue in time to make the deadline. That's how the story ends. What I love about the trial of Galactus is how it elevates stakes by making us consider Galactus on different terms. We start with saving the city of New York from Terrax, then saving the world from Galactus himself, and then ultimately saving Galactus in order to preserve the universal balance. This last move is so cosmic, so beyond the scope of our usual thinking, that Reed Richards, and really the very existence of Galactus, has to be placed on trial by all these alien races and survivors. Byrne does his own take on the cosmic story with the trial of Galactus. He teases out a heightened level of awareness of things beyond our everyday control, and that inspires a sense of awe and wonder in us. We may feel smaller in the grand scheme of things, but we can also find comfort that such a scheme exists in the first place, and is not just chaos and randomness. Like Reed Richards, we must rely on logic and faith to see us through. But for all this talk of highfalutin big ideas, John Byrne still knows this is a superhero comic. So the first 2/3 of this book is jam-packed with fight scenes that are absolutely kick-ass. Every member of the FF and their guest stars are given a chance to show what they're capable of doing, though the MVP for clobbering has to be Ben Grimm. The Thing punching Terrax across several skyscrapers is one great moment. Terrax slamming Ben into a supermarket is another. But the best fight moment has to be Reed being used as a rubber band to slingshot Ben right into Galactus' face. This is Byrne at his slam-bang inventive peak, giving us thrills and spills in the merry Marvel tradition. And it primes us for when the gears shift and we reach a point in the story where punching and violence is really not the issue. I also love that Galactus learns about the power of friendship after Reed saves him. It's a weird little grace note, and Galactus even mentions his friendship again during the trial. Probably not a smart idea, but okay. Meanwhile, Frankie Ray, now Nova, is falling in love with Galactus, which I'm sure is a cosmic HR violation waiting to happen. It's kind of funny, the idea of Galactus being more aware of these mortal feelings, though certainly it can be taken too far. Anyway, for all the different levels this book works, there's one more way of reading the Trial of Galactus that I find especially intriguing. Is it possible that not only Reed Richards and Galactus were placed on trial, but also the X-Men Phoenix? John Byrne's run on the Uncanny X-Men was his breakout work, and he's never been shy about sharing his opinions on that series. In the Trial of Galactus, Byrne has a problem with one notable event in Uncanny X-Men that happened after he left the book. Doom was in a story with Arcade from Uncanny 145 to 147. With Byrne, it was revealed, or really retconned, to show that Doom was actually just a Doombot, because Arcade used Doom's armor to light a match, and the real Doom would never let that happen. More indirectly, Byrne also seems to comment on the controversial decision to kill off Jean Grey in the Dark Phoenix saga. Originally, the story by Chris Claremont, Byrne, and Terry Austin ended with Jean without her powers but still alive. At least, that was the way it was supposed to be. However, in an earlier issue, Jean as Phoenix was flying around in space and consumed the sun called Devouring, killing the people on a planet that orbits it. Marvel's editor-in-chief at the time, Jim Shooter, found out about devouring and thought Jean Grey got off too lightly for committing genocide. After some debate, the creative team decided Jean would commit suicide after the Phoenix power was reawakened in her during a battle with the Shi'ar Imperial Guard. Thus, the classic ending to the Dark Phoenix saga that we all know. In the years that followed, Jean would actually return, and the Phoenix Force would be seen as a separate entity from her. But at the time of Byrne's FF run, she was still simply dead. But the case for letting her die may have still been under question, let's say. There are elements in the story that do harken back to Phoenix. When Frankie Raye volunteers to become the Herald of Galactus, Reed asks if she can live with being responsible for genocide on an ongoing basis. Frankie responds, "So, a few less bug-eyed monsters? What's that compared to my being able to go out there?" You get a very clear sense that Frankie wouldn't have any issue with snuffing out devouring at all. And while Nova does not have the plumage of Phoenix, she is still a being of cosmic fire, bearing some resemblance to Jean Grey's alter ego, as well as a power set that's on level with Phoenix, to say the least. Also keep in mind, Lilandra was the Empress of the Shi'ar who tried to take Phoenix down in Uncanny X-Men. She's also the leader of the coalition to place Reed Richards on trial. So that's another connection one can draw between the two stories, Lilandra and the Shi'ar as the arbiter of galactic justice. And so one has to ask, if they got Reed Richards wrong, could they also have misunderstood Jean Grey? Phoenix was also godlike in her abilities, and while her role in the universe was not clear, destroying one star system as opposed to Galactus destroying multiple worlds over eons of existence is indeed a drop in the bucket in the cosmic scheme of things. However, by human standards, the taking of even one life is much more consequential, never mind multiple lives or even whole communities. Jean Grey is a human who takes on the power of a god after all, and the theme of the Dark Phoenix saga is that oft-used quote, "Power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely." I do appreciate that John Byrne raised the possibility of reasonable doubt for how the Dark Phoenix saga turned out, even if that was not his intention. It's surprising just how layered and meaningful this arc in FF has become, and why come back to it repeatedly. And with that said, thank you for indulging me yet again. I'm Ray Mescalado. This is Comix Relix. Have a good day. Goodbye.